C, C, C. Mbak Erian, kita siap lihat slide-nya dulu ya. Latihan dulu ya.
Okay. Good morning, selamat pagi, or as we in Bali say, Rahajang Semang. Welcome to the second day of the OGP Asia Pacific Regional Conference. Your Excellencies, heads of delegation, ministers, ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen, and most of all, my friends. The theme of the event is Unlocking Innovative Openness, Impetus for Greater Citizen Engagement. We've had a fascinating first day. Actually, this is a second day. So we had a very fascinating first day yesterday. Started out with an address from Pak Kuntoro Mangkusubroto, and then by the president. And then we had an exciting day of breakout sessions covering a myriad of topics from open data, citizen engagement, access of information, private sectors, local governments, etc. And we had views on other regions because this is the first time we had an OGP Asia Pacific region, and we hope to invite and we hope to contribute to the world discourse on opening up governments through partnerships. It's my honor now to invite Pak Suyoto to regale us with his opening address. And let me mention first of all that Mr. Suyoto, or Kang Yoto as he's usually called, is one of Indonesia's local government leaders that believes in innovation as a key principle for government. Some of the innovations that he has promoted are establishment of House of Innovations and garbage banks, which in Indonesians are called bank sampah. So kami mengundang Pak Suyoto, we invite Pak Suyoto to come up and provide us with his address.
So thank you, Pak Dimar, and good morning for everybody, the distinguished all delegates. I would like to share with you in this moment our experience, how we try to implement the open government partnership principle happen in Bojonegoro. As you know that Bojonegoro actually is only one of 500 subnational level or district in Indonesia, and also Bojonegoro is part of Indonesian transformation democracy, start from the 1988 up to now. So now in Bojonegoro living 4.2 million people, but most of them poor. 28% they living in poor. But in era autonomy, we have a chance to solve our own problem with our own resources. And this is our problem. And the second problem is sliding lands. So even all the people need a better infrastructure, but most 80% our road is damaged at the times because the sliding infrastructure. And Bojonegoro prone to be flood and drought. This is disaster need to management and mitigation. We have flooding, drying, yearly comes. And also, in another hand, we are abundant with natural resources. You know that 20% national reserve for oil and gas is already in Bojonegoro now. And 44% our area consists from the thick forest. But both oil and forest belong to nation, not belong to region. In fact, I found that people perception was still not good for the bureaucracy. This was happened in 2006, 2007, when many people asking me to run candidation, to run for the head of regency candidate at the times. And the financial aspect, budget not enough. But the previous government spent not for the public service at the time as a priority. The absence of public communication space and also corruption. There are too many staff officials who indicated a corruption case, low quality of local bureaucracy, public distrust of bureaucracy. So at the times, actually for me, I was born in Bojonegoro, but 20 years I was moved to another city because I'm a lecturer in the one university, Muhammadiyah University at Malang. When I see the fact, so I asked to myself, actually, who am I? Am I to be observer? Really want to be observer? Or spectator? Or commentator? Or maybe I'm a player, to be player. I decided to myself that now I am a player, active player. I have to involve with all the people, hand in hand, to overcome the problem. So, I decide to run for the head of regency candidate, and then I go to all the people, 9 months, I go all the people, listen more than talking more. It's actually my difficult because I'm a lecturer, prefer to talk more than listen more. Yeah. So I try to listen more to understand how the problem, all the problem comes. That's the problem. So I try to conclude to understand that actually this because not disconnect between all stakeholders. People disconnect with the government disconnect with the people, and government disconnect with the stakeholder, the business, NGO, social organization. So actually it's disconnect because we are disconnect each others. So we weakness. So we become a weakness. So when I was a fortune that because I'm elected at the times, not difficult actually, and not easy to get winner, but I'm fortune, I'm elected. Now in my hand the authority. The first time I think at the times is how to use the government as part of solution, not part of problem. And the secondly, how I facilitate for all stakeholders reconnect. Because in my mind that, and I think that because the problem of disconnect. So I try to facilitate how to bring them a disconnect. I think that disconnect for all, connecting all stakeholders is the key. So, but the problem is actually my supporter, my constituent didn't want me to facilitate the connection because they hate the government. They hate to all staff government. When I come, first times, I realized when I to run my authority, I realized that I need all staff government. So I need them to deliver for public space, for public service. Instead of fire them, I give them political pardon. No one will lose his job for 6 months. But I ask them to be my team, to be part of my team with 3 done. Don't corrupt. Don't never say that it is not my responsibility when the problem comes. Don't complain. This is 3 done, most powerful for the staff at the times. And I have to meet with council, legislative, and another stakeholder. What I did at the times, I create the wider space for them to talk with me. Because I'm a politician, I don't want lose a public trust to me, so I have to connect with all the people. They are support me or not support me. I have to connect. So I give the people my mobile phone number for all the people. I give them the direct access to me. I host the public dialogue every Friday in 1 to 3 o'clock that Pak Kuntoro also join in my dialogues. So everyone is without no hesitate, is free to talk everything what they want in front of me, in front of head staff, in front of my vice. So everything they able to do, everything they able to talk in the forum. And also I give my email address, social media address, so every people can access me directly, actually, in dialect. And then at the times, I continue go to around these villages to make sure that I am really connect with the people at the times. So what happened after 3 and 6 months? This is amazing, actually. I never say before. Now everybody in my regency, especially in my staff, government staff, they are afraid to say no honesty to others. So become more honesty and transparent for others. And we look for our document, for fiscal document. We evaluate it again. Is really connect with the problem or not? With the public complaint or not? So this as the example that we in the planning, the planning transparency, we implement that we confide for the people the estimate of revenue in the public deliberation in the village, sub village, in the district, and then we resume and then we bring to council to get legalized as government regulation. It is very fortunate for us that after now, maybe it's after 4 years or 6 years, 5 years, too many changing in my regency. I am very happy to see that we realize transparency help us to trust each other. Accountability comes from keeping connection between now and the future, between us and other to open many possibilities comes. Now we enter the level that we never imagined before. We able to solve the problem better. I would like to show you the 3 cases in these years. In the February, we are winner. We are become a general winner for disaster management in national level, Bojonegoro. We are succeed to manage social conflict in oil and gas exploitation process. You know that a bit high risk because it is onshore process. We have to deal with many people at the times. In the last years, we won for the Sustainable Development Award, engaging people to paving road program, awarding the Sustainable Development Solution Network United Nations in cooperation with SDSN Indonesia. Furthermore, I would like to show you one example that we deal the problem with the engage the others, which engage the others. As you know that for many years, we spend a lot of money to build and maintain asphalt road, as you saw in the picture. But the result is continuous damaging of road and construction. I try to look the best way how we build the road. I found for my people at the time, I go the villages, I found that a paving block using. As you know that asphalt is difficult for the people to hand difficult to overcome the problem with himself. So it's fully depend on the government. So we invite the expert to make research. It's really compatible or not for the Bojonegoro road. And then the conclusion that from the University of Institute of Technology Surabaya say that it is compatible. So I decide to use paving widely used for all the Bojonegoro, and the paving block actually is very enjoy the people because we have four method. Constructual method, it means that all costs provided by local government, and paving block from local government, labor cost and other material from the communities. That's the second. And the third, we give machine from the local government for the community, and community made the paving with himself, and others paving road is built purely by local communities. And the result is it look that this is manufacturing by the businessman, but another manufacturing by the people. And now we feel that it is, that easy to build, easy to maintain with someone. And the result now is, our happiness index is increasing. We got 4 NDs for all happiness: public trust, sense of belonging, cooperation, revenue, and all. And this is made with the 6 pillar. So the last page, the last slide. You know that paving is made with the 6 pillar, and we really engaging partnership with communication in paving program made with the 6 sustainable development pillar in Bojonegoro Regency. And the last, the lesson for them. I would like, now we got the lesson to learn from Bojonegoro. What is the lesson I got from Bojonegoro? I would like to share with you. Partnership will only come if there is the connection between us. While we have the same intention, ready to open mind, open heart, open will, and ready to co-create innovation. What we do is actually transforming from ecosystem to ecosystem. And we believe by the power of we, all obstacle and threat can be overcome, and brighter future can be reached together. Thank you. Thank you, Pak Iwan.
Thank you, Kang Yoto. We are very proud of government officials like Pak Yoto and hundreds others in Indonesia, and I'm sure thousands others in the nations which you represent, who have made government more effective and more responsive, especially more innovative because of their openness to the civil society. But of course, it all comes through individuals. So it is my pleasure at this morning session to present the lightning talks, which are 7-minute presentations by 7 innovators who represent all of you. May I invite the first speaker, Ms. Diah. Diah Setiawati from the Association for Elections and Democracy in Indonesia, Perludem, has the innovative project called API Pemilu. And the context is that prior to this, Diah spent a year teaching in remote locations in Indonesia, for teaching for Indonesia, and she's also an avid advocate for open data initiatives. Silakan, Ibu Diah.
Election data at a touch of a finger. Let me begin by giving you an insight into a democratic process of a country that probably has the most complex election in the world. Imagine that there are 4 million election workers spread out around 550,000 voting locations throughout the 17,000 islands, set up to help 186 million voters to vote for the 200,000 candidates in one legislative election that will run for 20,000 seats. It's quite overwhelming just to look at the numbers. The description describes the biggest historical moment in Indonesia this year, our presidential election that will hold on the 9th of July. This follow our legislative election that was held on the 9th of April. The complexity of the election means that there are enormous amount of election data and information that should be addressed, but unfortunately are not fairly addressed and readily available to the public. This includes basic information, such as information on how to vote, on the candidate profile, information about their districts, and also related regulation. Based on Asia Foundation voter research in 6 target provinces, 25.4% people did not vote in 2009 legislative election because their lack of election information. All of this has led to one of the most crucial problems in Indonesia elections, which is the decrease of voters turnout. Ever since the post-Reformation era, there are increasingly growing numbers of abstaining voters. This also due to the lack of trust of their legislative candidate, and also we are currently lacking of independent media that could provide neutral and non-partisan information to the voters. So, what have we at Perludem done about this? We've been trying to address the lack of information problem by improving the availability and publication of the election data set. We gather all of the relevant data, extracting it into a machine-readable format, and structured a first-ever election database from that. We also work with local Indonesian software organization that creating application programming interface endpoint, API, giving the developers essential tools to create their apps. We call this API Pemilu. In Indonesia, API means fire, which is the symbol to reflect our spirits towards democracy. We use a unique approach that rely on local Indonesia developer groups, because the API is meant for the developers, not voters. The developer has the magic it takes to create cool and fun mobile apps using the API. A month after our program began, we finally conducted our first hackathon. Hackathon is an event where software developers and IT programmers collaborate intensively together in a software programs. Our hackathon was attended by 100 developers from all over Indonesia and also citizens of Indonesia in other countries, as you can see in the short video.
Come on, come on. Come on, come on. Come on, come on. Oh,
Thank you. We successfully created 7 mobile apps in only 24 hours. And our application can be downloaded in a Google Play Store and also in the iOS formats, which bring election data easily in a finger touch. Support and enthusiasm has been coming from 100,000 voters that downloaded our apps. Most of them are from Indonesia, but there are also voters across other countries such as USA, Germany, Japan, Singapore, and China. Up until the legislative election, there are more than 180,000 voters that access our apps and maps through their handphone. And we also had a very successful collaboration with Google. We are extremely happy knowing that based on the quick count result of the legislative elections, that voter turnout has increased up until the level of 75%, which is higher than we expected. And not only that, we have successfully inspired the Election Commission to create their own API and publish their own election data. Perludem want to sustain this approach towards the presidential election and beyond with more data to be added. We hope that this innovation will enable voters to make a better decision in the voting process and also to create a better democratic society. Thank you very much.
Congratulations to Ms. Diaz Tiawati and for the Asia Foundation for supporting her work. I personally have drawn great benefits from apps such as this, converting me from an ignorant, reluctant voter to still ignorant but enthusiastic voter. And we're halfway through the elections, and I think we're getting there through the help of people like her and, of course, the open participation of the government. So now we come to a gentleman from the Philippines, my favorite country, but then all countries are my favorite. When I was young, I used to go to Makati and wonder why Filipinos are so smart and so young, because at 24, I was still a student. At 21, they are PhD candidates. So now we have a bright Filipino here who is Jose Solomon Cortez from the Makati Business Club, and his innovation is called the Integrity Initiative. Jose has worked with a number of developmental organizations and NGOs, and then began his work with the business community in the Makati Business Club as the manager for the Integrity Initiative. We present Jose Solomon Cortez.
The Philippines has always been known to be one of the most corrupt countries in the world. This perception has eroded the country's credibility. It has also resulted in its citizens' lack of hopelessness and perpetual cynicism. An opportunity to change this perception came with the change in administration of the country in 2010. With President Benigno Aquino III's Good Governance Campaign and anti-corruption platform, the private sector now had the courage to face the problem of corruption as it never had before. Businesses in the Philippines had always known that corruption cuts into the cost of doing business. It perpetuates a skewed system that only favors entities that are willing to engage in unethical business practices, resulting in an uneven playing field. 5 business organizations decided to put a stop to this practice once and for all. The Makati Business Club, the Management Association of the Philippines, the European Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines, the American Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines, and the Financial Executives Institute of the Philippines came up with an idea of doing a standard way of doing business in the Philippines. They committed their members to follow a Unified Code of Conduct for Business, or UCCB. Enshrined in the code are integrity standards that require a company to follow ethical business practices within the organization and among their business partners as well. And it all starts with the signing of an integrity pledge. Once the head of the company signs the integrity pledge, the organization must now follow all provisions of the code, after which they would have to go through an online diagnostic tool to gauge how well they are faring in terms of following the provisions of the code. The online tool will also give them a rating that has to be validated by volunteer auditors from Integrity Initiative. After getting the rating, the company must now identify their areas for strengths and weaknesses, and even go through some learning interventions to address their areas for improvement. After getting the highest possible rating or advanced level, the company is now ready for certification. This certification would entail a thorough audit, not unlike that done by the International Organization for Standardization, or ISO. After getting the certification, the company is now eligible for certain benefits from government and other private entities. Since we launched the Integrity Initiative more than 3.5 years ago, we have contributed to a lot of positive developments for the country. In the Global Competitiveness Index of the World Economic Forum, we managed to climb up to number 59 out of 148 economies. This is an impressive 26-notch climb from our dismal position from 85 from 2010. We also managed to get credit rating upgrades from such institutions like Moody's, Fitch, and Standard & Poor's, with the latter, together with the International Monetary Fund, giving the Philippines a positive growth forecast for 2014. To date, more than 2,000 companies have now signed the Integrity Pledge. And even more than 200 business organizations, local chambers, and professional associations are helping us promote the signing of the pledge among their members. In addition, more than 40 government agencies have signed their own version of the Integrity Pledge, and some of them are even requiring their bidders and suppliers to sign the Integrity Pledge. With this very successful model, we hope that countries here in the Southeast Asian region, where we all are right now, can adopt this model. And hopefully, in the near future, even replicate it among all OGP countries worldwide as well. For more details, you can log on to our website at www.integrityinitiative.com. Thank you very much and good day.
Thank you. An enlightened business community that has always helped to catalyze the process of innovation through partnership of government and civil society. So we hope your experience will inspire all of us here for endeavors of this kind. Now, switching from private sector to government, switching from the Philippines to a place nearby but within the Indonesian territory, Gorontalo. We are going to invite Pak Budianto Sidik from the Gorontalo Province Administration. His innovation is in e-monitoring and evaluation. As he walks on stage, I should say that Pak Budianto is the head of the Bureau of Development and Economic Oversight of Gorontalo Province. His main task is to assist the governor of Gorontalo in monitoring and controlling the development activities undertaken by the local government. Silakan Pak Budianto.
Thank you, Mr. Wimal. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Budianto Sidiki, Head of Bureau of Development and Economic Oversight of Gorontalo Province, Indonesia. All participants, allow me to present in bahasa Indonesia. Baik Bapak Ibu sekalian yang saya hormati, senang sekali berada di sini berbagi pengalaman transparansi di provinsi kami. Di tahun 2012, ketika pertama kali saya menduduki posisi ini, saya menemukan kesulitan di dalam melaksanakan tugas membantu gubernur melakukan pemantauan, melakukan evaluasi, pengendalian, dan pelaporan aktivitas pembangunan yang tersebar, yang dilaksanakan oleh setiap instansi di seluruh Provinsi Gorontalo. Beberapa persoalan lain yang kami identifikasi antara lain, saya melihat ada ketimpangan proporsi belanja. Belanja publik itu hanya 30%. Mohon maaf, ya belanja publik hanya 30%, sedangkan belanja aparat itu mencapai 70%. Yang kedua adalah, saya melihat setiap tahun dan selama bertahun-tahun, saya menemukan selalu terjadi keterlambatan dalam pelaksanaan kegiatan pembangunan. Hampir setiap tahun, pelaksanaan kegiatan pembangunan itu baru dimulai di pertengahan tahun, bahkan menumpuk di akhir tahun. Dan yang ketiga, saya menemukan persoalan bahwa masyarakat tidak memiliki akses yang memadai untuk mengetahui, mendapatkan informasi apa saja yang dilakukan oleh pemerintah daerah. Berangkat dari persoalan ini, saya mencoba bersama tim saya di biro melakukan perbaikan manajemen pengendalian dengan mendesain sebuah aplikasi sederhana, aplikasi online yang kami beri nama e-monep atau Electronic Monitoring, Evaluasi, dan Pelaporan. Konten dari aplikasi ini adalah seluruh program dan kegiatan beserta item-item pembiayaannya, kemudian proporsi belanja antara belanja aparatur dan belanja publik, kemudian ada program-program unggulan dan program strategis provinsi, ada program yang ditujukan untuk percepatan pencapaian Millennium Development Goals, ada target kinerja dan raport SKPD atau instansi pemerintah daerah. Nah, Bapak Ibu sekalian yang saya hormati, selama 2 tahun kami melaksanakan ini, maka kami melihat ada kemajuan yang berarti. Yang pertama adalah proporsi belanja publik yang tadinya 30%, secara bertahap terjadi peningkatan di tahun 2013 sebesar 66%, bahkan di tahun ini 2014 mencapai 70%. Yang kedua, terjadi akselerasi percepatan pelaksanaan pembangunan. Dari data Emonep, di triwulan 1, perbandingannya antara triwulan 1 2012, pelaksanaan kegiatan percepatan serapan anggaran baru mencapai 10% dibandingkan dengan tahun 2013, di triwulan yang sama 100% meningkat menjadi 20%. Dan ini adalah dampak dari pengendalian berbasis Emonep tadi. Yang ketiga adalah terjadi peningkatan kinerja instansi pemerintah daerah. Dan semakin kecilnya peluang instansi-instansi pemerintah daerah untuk terjadinya penyimpangan atau korupsi. Sebab masyarakat bisa mengakses langsung seluruh rangkaian kegiatan sejak pertama sampai selesai. Ini dampak dari pelaksanaan Emonep. Bapak Ibu sekalian yang kami hormati, ke depan kami melihat, kami terus melakukan perbaikan aplikasi ini, menyempurnakannya terus, dan kami berharap ke depan nanti bahwa transparansi pelaksanaan kegiatan pembangunan itu bisa terjadi sejak tahapan perencanaan sampai tahapan evaluasi dan pelaporan. Dan ini hanya bisa terwujud jika kita dengan serius mengintegrasikan seluruh sistem informasi, seluruh aplikasi yang berdiri sendiri-sendiri, berdiri parsial, perencanaan, penganggaran, pelaksanaan, dan audit, ke dalam sebuah database yang dikelola bersama dan bisa diakses oleh seluruh masyarakat. Khususnya ini kalau terjadi pada tahapan perencanaan dan pembahasan pengalokasian anggaran. Karena pada tahapan inilah sering terjadi kompromi dan sangat tertutup serta bersifat transaksional. Bapak Ibu sekalian yang saya hormati, di akhir penyampaian ini saya ingin menyampaikan gagasan atau pandangan kritis saya. Yang pertama, data dan informasi yang akurat akan melahirkan strategi yang baik. Yang kedua, transparansi esensinya adalah kejujuran. Pemerintah berani jujur kepada masyarakat, berani menerima kritik dan masukan. Dan yang ketiga, Emonep hanyalah tools penunjang. Komitmen pemimpin dan para elit akan sangat mendukung terciptanya transparansi. Visi pemimpin yang tegas, yang ikhlas akan menciptakan, akan membawa transparansi, meningkatkan kinerja pemerintah daerah. Sedangkan pemerintah daerah yang hanya menjadikan transparansi sebagai isu politik, maka transparansi pemanfaatan aplikasi ini akan menjadi senjata makan tuan karena mempertontonkan kebobrokan penyelenggaraan pemerintahan daerah. Di awal kami menerapkan ini, kami mendapat banyak cemoohan, penolakan. Tetapi secara bertahap akhirnya Emonep ini menjadi sebuah kebutuhan. Demikian yang bisa kami sampaikan, Bapak Ibu sekalian. Terima kasih. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and again, congratulations. You must be as excited as I am if we remember that 15 years ago we could not have heard such an exciting demonstration of innovation from an Indonesian government official. So I'm curious because I cannot comment on the other countries, but I hope we are getting there overall through people like Pak Budianto. Speaking of elections, Pak Budianto. Speaking of elections earlier on, we have a country which dwarfs the Indonesian election in size, dimension, complexity, which is India. So we bow in humility when we hear the name India. And now we are very happy to hear from Soumya Kidambi from the state of Andhra Pradesh, India, who will present her innovation, the Society of Social Audits. Soumya Kidambi is currently the director of the Society for Social Audit, Accountability and Transparency. Soumya holds a master's degree in social work and a diploma in human rights. Please.
Thank you. We've spent the last 3 days at the Open Government Partnership talking about various issues. And I think two questions that would have definitely cropped up in our minds continuously is whether governments can really be open and transparent, and can there be a meaningful partnership between civil society and government. I bring to you my experiences as a civil society activist who for the last 7 years has been working with the government of Andhra Pradesh, a southern state in India, and has spent the better part of the last 4 years heading an independent institution set up to do social audits. What is a social audit? A social audit is an exercise where government proactively puts out information, and this information is then picked up by facilitators who take it into the villages, meet every single beneficiary, talk to every single person who's worked on the largest public works program that's being run in India, and verifying every single work that has taken place in that village. So imagine that in the last 6 years that we've done these audits, we've audited a few $1 billion worth of works and met over a few crores, a few billion workers who've been working on these work sites. I'd like to actually show you some figures. What is the impact of this independent institution which carries out impartial social audits been? We've done 6 rounds of social audits. Approximately 21,000 villages have been covered. We've trained village social auditors. These are volunteers from rural labor families who are trained in the audit process. About 100,000 of them have been trained across the state of Andhra Pradesh. So far, we've been managed to identify $30 million worth of funds that have been misappropriated. We managed to recover $5 million, and this experience of recovering money is done publicly. So in a social audit, people pick up information, take it into the villages, read it out to the people, tell them these are the works that have taken place, these are the people who have worked, have they worked, not worked, have they got paid, not paid. And eventually when people find that something has gone wrong and they come out and testify openly, the money that people have actually stolen is returned publicly in front of everyone. The process of speaking out fearlessly happens at 2 levels. One is at the village level where there are independent observers in front of whom these reports are read out, and people are given an opportunity to come and speak and talk to government and tell them what's gone wrong. At a higher level, in a cluster of villages, we hold a public hearing. Again, people come out, speak. So far, we've been able to implicate 49,000 people. We've punished 25,000 people. 5,220 people have been removed. 1,230 people have been suspended. And 164 first information reports, police cases have been registered. How has all of this been possible? What is it that has really pushed government to want to carry out an exercise of this kind? You have fantastic MIS. People have been talking about databases. People have been talking about putting information into one place. Having information in one place is okay, but how do you really get it across to the people who matter, for whom this information matters, for whose lives depend on this information? So through this well-worked out network of facilitators who take this information into rural areas and read it out to them, share this information, carry out the entire exercise of a social audit, we found that 2 things were critical. The first is political intent. It's fine to say, I will stand up and talk against corruption. I will stand up and take action against people who are corrupt. But to actually show that intent and commitment politically and administratively, when you have a backlash from your people who come and say, how can you read this out? How can you have us implicated publicly? To be able to stand up and say a wrong is a wrong, every individual who's entered a social contract with government has to ultimately have government responsible and answerable to them. I think if the governments that are present here, representatives who are present here, who are part of the open government partnership were to decide that commitment and intent are important, and 4 principles that really matter to ensure information reaches people in a manner in which it is demystified and they're able to make sense of it, to be able to ensure that there is a public platform where people can speak freely, frankly, without fear. An enabling environment is provided for people to come forth and put forth their views. To be able to take criticism on the chin and say, it's fine, we'll change our ways, we'll fix the problem, we'll find a solution. To be able to redress people's grievances, where they don't have to go from pillar to post searching for someone who will listen to them, but that we actually take governance to their doorstep and say, this government is here to function for you, we are here to hear you, and we are here to change. And finally, if government shows intent in terms of taking action, to have grievances come to you, to have people come out and speak fearlessly and tell you that something has gone wrong is fine. What after that? What if government keeps on listening and says, yeah, we've heard this before, this will continue. We'll try and fix it, but not really do something. I think follow-up and action is something that speaks loudest and shows very clearly government's intent. I'd like to end with an anecdote. A few years ago, about 2 years ago, I was sitting in a public hearing where thousands of people were present. And this old man suddenly stands up and starts singing loudly. And I was a bit taken aback. I was like, why is he singing? So I stepped across. I said, can I meet you separately? And I asked him, I said, why did you just suddenly stand up and start singing a revolutionary poem? He said, you know, we've had 65 years of independence. I was part of this independence movement. He was about 75. He said, I've seen it all. And I've been wondering, why did we fight for independence at all? But today, for the first time in my life, standing here in this public hearing, I've seen a value to our democracy. For the first time, government has actually come out, heard us, given us this platform to speak. And I think this is the most powerful tool that we have in the hands of citizens. So if government really, really wants, it can make change. And it can bring about a change not just in its own country, but across the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Somaya. I'm just so happy and delighted to share your experiences. As delighted as I am to share these moments with you all. As I say in my daily comments around here, every society has its good guys and bad guys. But now, this room only contains good guys. So we live in interesting times, and one of the countries which makes this time very interesting, maybe unfortunate for the people concerned, is the country of Afghanistan. We're always watching Afghanistan, and now we have somebody who is watching it for us from Afghanistan. We have our fifth speaker is Syed Ikram Afzali from Integrity Watch Afghanistan. His innovation is community-based monitoring program. Afzali is Director of Advocacy and Communication at Integrity Watch. He has been working on governance issues with national and international organizations for the last 1 decade. And it's our pleasure to allow him time to get geared up. Thank you. Syed Ikram Afzali.
Let me begin with a very personal story. I lived my first 5 years in a refugee camp in Pakistan. I faced all the challenges that you could imagine a refugee would face. I lived 5 years under a tent when I was a little kid. I went to a school where more than 100 students had to sit in the same class on the floor. I, like many other children, suffered from many diseases like measles, malaria, and diarrhea. We always heard about stories of our houses being destroyed and our near and dear ones being killed back in Afghanistan. However, my family and I never lost hope. And we always believed that we will one day go back to our country and contribute to rebuilding it. And finally, the day came when I went back to Afghanistan in 2004. This was the time when aid money was pouring into Afghanistan. And Afghan hopes for a prosperous future were very high. Some $80 billion were spent between 2001 and 2011. The US government alone spent $28 million a day as of 2013. However, hopes of many Afghans were undermined by corruption that existed at many different levels. Because aid money was spent in a non-transparent way, many of the schools that were newly built started to fall apart. Many of the roads that were newly built started to disappear. Millions of dollars were spent on buildings that existed on paper only. Here is an example of a bridge that was built, but only on paper. The contractor ran away with the money and left the area of the people of the area hopeless. The bridge was supposed to connect 3 districts to the center of Parwan province, which is in the center of Afghanistan. I started working with many different organizations, but I was not satisfied with the work I was doing because I really felt that there was something very, very important missing. And that was putting communities at the center of development process, both as receivers and as agents of development. I then started working with Integrity Watch Afghanistan, where we developed a program to involve communities in monitoring government infrastructure projects. The community-based monitoring program promotes social accountability through community mobilization and social audit. We work with local communities to identify local monitors who then volunteer to monitor projects that are implemented in their communities. The local monitors receive social and technical training from us, who then utilize this knowledge to measure a series of metrics and phenomena related to integrity, which ensures quality and impact for the communities. Here is an example of 3 of our monitors monitoring a school building in northern province of Mazar. Here are some more examples of Provincial Monitoring Board, which is composed of many different actors, including the government and the contracting companies. The community-based monitoring program has proven that it can make aid effective. But one of the challenges that we have been facing is accessing information. Access to information is critical to making community monitoring work. Unfortunately, in Afghanistan, like in many other countries, access to information to such projects, documents, is very limited. Aid and government expenditure can only work if it is spent in a transparent manner. Therefore, the governments and donors need to adopt open contracting policies and access to information policies to make aid work and government expenditure work. This is, in fact, at the center of the Open Government Partnership. In Afghanistan, community-based monitoring has worked well despite the difficulties that we have faced in accessing information. We have been able to monitor some 800 projects through 1,350 volunteers and 35 districts of 6 provinces. We have developed a website that you can access at communitymonitoring.org, where you can find all the material about the program that we have developed. Community monitoring gives people like me who have suffered from years of conflict and corruption a hope that they can do something for their communities, that they can take part in rebuilding their communities and become champions against corruption. So let's open up our governments and empower our communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We wish you the best of everything, the best of rewards for your great endeavor. Now we come to the sixth speaker, time really flies, which is Undral Gombodorj from the Democracy Education Center of Mongolia, and her name of the innovation is Check My Service. She is educated in economics in Prague in the Czech Republic. She has almost 20 years of experience in NGO sectors. She's also a happy mother and grandmother.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a question to you. To what extent are you satisfied with the quality and delivery of public services in your country?
No.
Can you receive the service you want?
Sometimes.
In Mongolia, in my country, the research shows that over 80% of citizens are not happy with the public service they get. As you might know, Mongolia is now on the list of middle-income countries. But there are no tangible improvements in people's lives. Social inequalities are rising, and the rich-poor gap is widening. Let me give you some facts. In Mongolia, Mongolia spends over 20% of state budget on education. But there are 40 to 50 students per classroom in 3 shifts in many schools. Too many children are crammed in a small classroom, suffer from lack of air, get irritated and distracted. Children should be provided with the proper learning and hygiene conditions to get quality education. Secondly, citizen taxes go to 9 doctors at family health centers, but only 5 actually work. And last but not least, citizens have to knock on 10 doors to get a single document. Though we have very nice machines as were presented yesterday. This is the situation how the government serves its citizens. Should the citizens keep silent? And should this situation happen again and again? No. My organization said no. And to solve this problem, the Democracy Education Center, for short DEMO, has piloted the Check My Service project. We assessed the transparency and accessibility of public services using the community scorecard tool. To date, we have piloted series of this initiative, such as Check My School, Check My Clinic, Check My University, and Check My Hospital. We have plans in the future to explore other sectors as well, like Check My Road, Check My Transport, or Check My Water. I am sure that most of you here are familiar with the community scorecard tool. This social accountability tool was developed by the Public Information Center in Bangalore, India, and has applied in countries across Asia, Africa, and other countries as well. And this tool is relatively new in my country. And I'm very pleased to say that thanks to the great partnership with ANSA AEP and the support of World Bank, Canada Fund, and the Asia Foundation, we were able to adapt it to Mongolian circumstances and implement it in Mongolia. Interesting to note that formerly, people in Mongolia, when things are not going well, or the public services are not being delivered properly, they tend to blame, shout, criticize, or fight. But that was not effective. We have chosen the other way. We teach citizens how to collect information about public services, how to verify and notify them with facts and evidence, how to present the results to service providers, and how to constructively engage with the government. And we are getting the results. Now let me share some results we achieved. Although they may appear as small changes, nonetheless they are important and significant. We have now one textbook per student instead of one book shared among 3 children before. The number of students per classroom has reduced from 45 to 35 by restructuring the improperly used space in schools into classrooms. There was also improvement in cleaning and hygiene in school toilets. In one particular school for children with disability, the school administration has succeeded to add 3 more associate teachers, 1 psychologist, and 1 nurse to school staff. And this scorecard was not applied only in schools, but also in clinics, where was the improvement in the environment, in waiting areas. Before scorecard, the public information was not disclosed, and the people, citizens, were not well informed about the implications of freedom of information and the budget law. But now we have succeeded to make transparent the necessary information and budget expenditure in piloted schools and clinics. And finally, I am pleased to say that DEMO, jointly with the Ministry of Education of Mongolia, is drafting the policy paper to institutionalize the application of community scorecard tool in education sector. As you might remember, at the beginning of my talk, I asked you, to what extent are you satisfied with the public service in your country? In the future, I hope to get 100% positive response from all of you and have a government that listens, informs, and improves. This is my vision. And through DEMO, I am working towards achieving this vision. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. We can certainly learn so much, not just from the results of people, but from the challenges they face, because it's those challenges which define the quality of your effort. Well, we come to the last speaker, and she comes from a very exciting, faraway country, which is Australia. Fiona Tweedy from the Open Knowledge Foundation, and her name of innovation is GovHack. Fiona has a doctoral in Roman history. She is the co-chair of Open Knowledge Foundation Australia and organizer of GovHack Melbourne. She also worked in government policy, including the development of the principles in public sector innovation. Fiona Sweeney.
8 cities, 1,000 volunteers, 43,000 hours of coding and development, and more caffeine than we could measure, went into making GovHack 2013, a huge Australia-wide hackathon focused on government data. But let's back up a moment. What is a hackathon? And why would you do that? A hackathon is a competition in which teams and individuals come together for a short period of time to create a solution to a challenge. I'd just like to emphasize that in this context, hack refers back to its original meaning, which is to play or to seek a shortcut to do something. We weren't trying to break into government at all over this weekend. Rather, teams were using published government data to see what they could make in 48 hours. Public sector information refers to the data which is collected and generated by government in the course of its work. As we've already discussed here, making this information publicly available for reuse is a central plank of the open government philosophy. After all, this data is collected using public funds. It seems only reasonable that, allowing for considerations like privacy and security, it should be made available to the public. But it's not just a matter of ideology. Research has shown that making this data available increases its value exponentially. In fact, McKinsey have estimated that globally, open data is worth $3 trillion every year. So the case for agencies to start making their data available is obvious, but that value only flows once it starts to be reused. So to help showcase the types of public sector information that are available and kickstart that reuse, we created GovHack. Over the course of the weekend, teams used a huge variety of data, from population statistics to water quality information, to create a range of apps and visualizations that made that data more accessible and started to demonstrate its value. Last GovHack fell just before Australia's federal election, and 2 teams chose to use the parliamentary debates and votes recorded in Hansard and created tools to help voters understand that information easily. These tools meant that people could see how politicians have actually voted in Parliament and where the parties stand on key issues, enabling them to cut through the noise of pre-election promises and make a more informed vote. Another team, frustrated by the inconsistent formats of the data available, created a tool to start extracting it from those government PDFs and into formats which people could start to reuse. This tool proved to be so useful that they've since gone on to form their own startup business. So that was the weekend. After we all caught up on our sleep, we sat down and thought about some of the challenges we'd encountered and the lessons we'd learned. It's both a strength and a weakness of hackathons that they concentrate an immense amount of energy for a really short period of time. At the end of the weekend, a lot of the participants just want to go home. They've had fun, met some new friends, challenged themselves and learned some new skills, but they're not really interested in taking their hacks that much further, which is fine. But what about the agencies who've participated by making their data available and want to continue on that data publication journey? For them, GovHack is the first step. It proves that people can and will use their data. But that's just the beginning. At the Open Knowledge Foundation, we want to make sure that those government data publishers are supported to continue their work in the best way possible. And we believe that that's done by forming meaningful relationships with the data reuse community that will persist. The first thing we did then was get a group of gov hackers and government representatives together to showcase some of the best apps from GovHack and talk about what it takes for data to be truly reusable. Following the showcase, we put together an event we called Meet the Data Owners. Here, we brought together representatives from Vic Roads, which is the Victorian government agency responsible for roads and transport, with the data use community. At first, Vic Roads were a bit dubious about what we were proposing. An informal meetup outside office hours, where we couldn't be sure beforehand exactly who was going to turn up. But the evening was a huge success. Over 50 people with an interest in reusing roads and transport data came along to talk to the Vic Roads representatives. They discussed the types of data which the community most wants to see published and the formats it needs to be in to make it really useful. By meeting in this informal context, people who'd never usually participate in a formal government consultation were able to come along and be heard, and Vic Roads could build links with the community really easily. In fact, the evening was so successful that other Victorian government agencies have asked us to put on Meet the Data Owners style events for them too. So, publishing public sector information is an important first step. But for me, I'm most proud of those follow-up events. They show how easy it is to build real connections with your community and start getting some meaningful feedback. I've worked in government, so I know it's not always easy. You worry about getting a hostile reaction or attracting criticism of your employer. But really, if you talk to them as peers, data geeks are pretty friendly people. GovHack 2 is continuing to grow. We'll be in 10 cities around the country this year, and the number of agencies participating is growing. I'm really pleased to see all levels of government starting to get involved in this initiative. Publishing public sector information, as I've said, is important, but the value really only flows from reuse. Whether it's creating a cycle map that helps cyclists avoid roads used by heavy trucks, or whether it's a visualization that lets voters understand budget spending at a glance. So get together with your data reuse community, because isn't collaboration what open government is really all about?
Thank you very much, Fiona. So we have heard from the 7 speakers stories on struggle to be heard, on passion for excellence, and on belief to take actions. I cannot summarize talks which are essentially summaries already, nor have I been asked to summarize, but I just want to savor again the moments we had. That one thing, one common denominator that we have enjoyed is the excellence of these persons and the inspirational qualities. And we do want to derive the last benefit from the presence of these innovators by having them appear on the podium and accepting our appreciation. Please. We thank you, and we thank the wonderful audience. Please take your seats. I have small but pleasant announcement to make that coffee break is ready. And after that, we can go to our breakout sessions. Thank you very much for the honor and privilege.